And welcome to this mini lecture. This mini lecture will be on the Pterygopalatine fossa. So just going off the last video that we made, the Pterygopalatine fossa communicates directly with the infratemporal fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure. So the infratemporal fossa would be located here. The greater wing of the sphenoid has been cut here so we can see the anatomy, but the infratemporal fossa would be located just here. And through this fissure here, the pterygo, the name pterygo comes from the pterygoid plate of the sphenoid bone, which is just here. Maxillary bone, the pterygomaxillary fissure, this is the fissure here, communicates or provides communication between the pterygopalatine ganglion and the the pterygopalatine fossa and the infratemporal fossa. So now that we've mentioned that, we can hide this, or we'll fade it actually, fade the bone. And we'll talk about the pterygopalatine ganglion. The pterygopalatine ganglion receives input technically from three nervous structures. The first of these is the maxillary nerve. The maxillary nerve, which exits the skull through foramen rotundum, which is just here, and it's the second branch of the trigeminal nerve, exits the skull through foramen rotundum and has a few branches. It sends branches to the pterygopalatine ganglion. These are completely sensory and they do not actually synapse on the ganglion, they just pass through it. The next of the three are located here. So the nerve of the pterygoid canal. The nerve of the pterygoid canal goes directly into the pterygopalatine ganglion. This is the canal, and we can see the ganglion just there. The nerve of the pterygoid canal receives input from the greater petrosal nerve, which is from facial nerve origin, and the deep petrosal nerve. So this is the greater petrosal nerve. It provides parasympathetic innervation, and it synapses within the pterygopalatine ganglion. But the deep petrosal nerve doesn't actually synapse. So it's postganglionic. This is postganglionic. And the greater petrosal nerve is preganglionic. The greater petrosal nerve is preganglionic and synapses on the pterygopalatine ganglion and then sends out postganglionic fibers after that. The deep petrosal nerve is already postganglionic by the time it joins with the greater petrosal to form the nerve of the pterygoid canal. It is already postganglionic and receives input from the internal carotid plexus, which wraps around the internal carotid artery, and it provides sympathetic innervation to the pterygopalatine ganglion. So just to recap, the pterygopalatine ganglion receives sensory innervation from the maxillary nerve. It receives parasympathetic innervation from the greater petrosal nerve, which is from the facial nerve, and it receives sympathetic innervation from the deep petrosal nerve, which is from the internal carotid plexus. So these two nerves join to form the nerve of the pterygoid canal. The nerve of the pterygoid canal passes through the pterygoid canal with the artery of the pterygoid canal, which is one of the terminal branches of the maxillary nerve. Let's see if I can show you. So the maxillary nerve, you can just see it highlighted there. Maxillary artery. Maxillary artery, one of its terminal branches, along with the sphenopalatine artery, is the artery of the pterygoid canal. So those structures pass through the pterygoid canal and synapse. They meet up with the ganglion in the fossa, the pterygopalatine ganglion within the pterygopalatine fossa. Now, the branches that come out of the pterygopalatine ganglion, there are a few of them, but we'll go through them one by one. So these branches go into the pterygopalatine ganglion and provide sensory innervation. Technically speaking, they come out of the ganglion and go back into the skull, but just for understanding's sake, we'll say that it comes into the ganglion. Okay. So the first branches, we'll talk about the palatine branches. So the palatine branches, they descend. The greater palatine nerve and the lesser palatine nerve or nerves, depending on variation in anatomy, they pass through the descending palatine canal along with the descending palatine artery, which is also part of the third branch or the third division of the maxillary artery. They pass through the descending palatine canal and find their way, see if I can show you, onto the palate, just here. So here we can see the greater palatine artery along with the greater palatine nerve. The greater palatine nerve has sensory, sympathetic, and parasympathetic innervation and supplies the hard palate. So it runs across the hard palate and provides innervation to the hard palate and crosses over anteriorly with the nasopalatine nerve. The nasopalatine nerve should be this one. Yep, the nasopalatine nerve, which provides sensory innervation from canine to canine, essentially anteriorly, and then the greater palatine nerve supplies the rest of the hard palate. The lesser palatine nerve provides sensation to the soft palate. So there are three nerves that supply the palate. The nasopalatine nerve most anteriorly, and that comes out of the incisive canal, just there, with the sphenopalatine artery, or a branch of the sphenopalatine artery. So the nasopalatine nerve most anteriorly, and then for the hard palate, it'll be the greater palatine nerve, and then the lesser palatine nerve provides sensation to the soft palate. And all these palatine nerves, they all carry sensory, parasympathetic, and sympathetic innervation. And they all receive it from the same place because they all come out of the pterygopalatine ganglion. So they receive sensory innervation from the maxillary nerve itself. They receive parasympathetic innervation from the greater petrosal nerve, from the facial nerve, and they receive sympathetic innervation from the deep petrosal nerve, which is the nerve from the internal carotid plexus, which we spoke about before. So they all have sensory, parasympathetic, and sympathetic innervation. Sorry, we got a little bit off topic there, but we'll go back. So those were the palatine nerves, the greater palatine and the lesser palatine nerves. The nasopalatine nerve, see if we can find it. Hang on. Might be easier to go through the front. Yeah, so the nasopalatine nerve, you can see it comes off the pterygopalatine ganglion. It was hard to see from that angle, but as we mentioned before, it runs on the medial wall of the nose. It comes through the sphenopalatine foramen with the sphenopalatine artery, just back there. So it comes out there and then comes out of the incisive canal or the incisive foramen or the nasopalatine foramen to supply the anterior palate. Okay, so we've got the palatine branch, we've got the nasopalatine branch, and we've got two more branches. We have the pharyngeal branch. See if we can... The pharyngeal branch runs posteriorly. The pharyngeal nerve. Yeah, so the pharyngeal nerve we can see comes out over here and supplies general sensation from the mucosa of the nasopharynx. So it's the sensory and then parasympathetic innervation to mucosal glands of the same territory. So that's the pharyngeal branch. And then finally we have the orbital branch. The orbital branches. Let's see if this wants to work. Yeah, the orbital branches. The orbital branches run superiorly through the inferior orbital fissure, and they convey general sensation from the periorbital fascia of the orbit. Just for completeness sake, the pterygopalatine ganglion, through these maxillary roots, provides secretomotory function to the lacrimal gland. So the lacrimal gland, if you remember, receives secretomotor innervation from the greater petrosal. The greater petrosal then synapses on the pterygopalatine ganglion. It runs up the maxillary, the branches of maxillary nerve to pterygopalatine ganglion, runs across here. So this is the maxillary nerve. This is the zygomatic nerve. So it runs up here, zygomatic, and then goes through this branch, the communicating branch of zygomatic or temporal nerve, to the lacrimal nerve. Now the lacrimal nerve here from the ophthalmic division of trigeminal provides sensation to the lacrimal gland, but the lacrimal gland receives parasympathetic innervation from the pterygopalatine ganglion through this route. Yeah. And that's it. Thanks for listening.